Thanks so much for sharing that. And JP, I'm so glad you're here because gig workers, of course, are among the most and the longest monitored workers very closely in their work for so long. But the good news is that you're, part of these grassroots bottom-up organizing efforts from gig workers in California and across the country and around the world. So what are some of the threads that you see in gig worker organizing, even under the weight of these surveillance technologies that might help point a way forward for communities that want to fight back against the AI surveillance pipeline?
Yeah, that's right, Tim. At Gig Workers Rising, we get to meet real people every day who are impacted by these decisions. We meet workers who can't provide for their families or who face homelessness because an algorithm made a decision that basically shuts them out of the app that provides them work. And we meet a lot of workers who just live with a baseline of stress and uncertainty in their everyday lives because they're trying to guess what the algorithm is going to do to them, right? So they're trying to guess why the algorithm is paying a certain driver more than another driver, why a certain driver is getting paid less for the same amount of work for the same trip. And that's why a group of workers at Gig Workers Rising actually designed a prop, a literal black box, and they took that box to the front step of Uber, of the Uber headquarters, and that symbolized for them the desire to know what was inside that black box, to understand how these decisions are made. What's the logic that's being used to pay workers differently for the same work? And of course, what's in that black box ultimately is their data, which is to say it's their lives, right? It's everything they're doing. Candy Staten once sang, "I'm a victim of the songs I sing." Well, these workers become the victims of the data that they generate through their own work, which is then used in ways they don't understand. And so, as the workers begin to understand these issues, and as we, try to organize together to build power, one of the biggest challenges that we face is that, the technology is often, it's like the water that we're swimming in. It's something that we organize our lives around, but it's not something that we sometimes feel that we have the power to actually shape. And so there can be a tendency amongst many workers to start to buy the AI marketing hype as destiny. And so the challenge for us at Gig Workers Rising is to understand that, that workers have the ability to shape these policy choices, that these are decisions that are made by humans, and that we have the power collectively to direct the path of this technology. And that's what so much of our organizing effort and energy has been focused on.
Awesome. And JP, in addition to giving us a great playlist to follow up on after the webinar, could you give us the audience a quick takeaway of how they could best support your organizing? What's one thing that folks could do after this?
Well, sure. I mean, the work is ongoing, it's constant, there's so much to do. But I would say that, wherever you are in the country, whatever issues your organization might be focused on, we want to invite you to take the time to connect with and learn from workers who are already being impacted by algorithms and surveillance capitalism right now in your community, in your city. And then whenever you hear narratives about the future of tech in local government or the direction of AI in the community, ask yourself who is shaping that narrative and who is being excluded from it. If you're a policymaker and you're working on these topics, take time to notice which tables actually include worker voices, and then challenge yourself to make sure that we can get worker voices at the table. Because, what we find is that so many of the folks who live with the very real, very material brunt of these decisions don't get invited to the table, don't get to have a voice in the shaping, writing, or creating of these policies. And so whenever you hear the hype, the narrative, take a moment and ask yourself who's being excluded from it and what can you do to make sure that worker voices are at the table.